I can remember looking back at the beginning of my career and having an interest in video, but I remember thinking to myself back then that if I wanted my footage to look anything like what I saw on the big movie screen, I was going to have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on cameras and film and lenses. Today, everything has changed.
What we've put in this tutorial is the culmination of 8 years of everything we've learned producing videos for Fstoppers.
About 13 years ago, I started my career as a professional still photographer. But about 8 years ago, I started Fstoppers with Patrick Hall. We taught ourselves how to shoot video, and since then, our lives have never been the same.
If people would have asked me 8 years ago, Patrick, would you ever believe that your primary job now is shooting video? I would have been completely surprised because I was so in love with photography. But I have to say, being able to do both and juggling them at the same time has been the wisest decision I've ever made for my business.
Now let's talk about color grading our footage. Before we go to Premiere and I start taking you step by step through what we do, let's talk a little bit about shooting in log. The most exciting thing about all of this is that you already own all of the gear that you need. If you already understand how to work your camera, you understand what exposure is all about and how to choose the correct f-stop and the right shutter speed, all of the hard work is already done. You might as well flip that camera into video mode and start shooting video clips as well. David is actually using an electronic gimbal to stabilize the camera so that we can both walk at the same time and get silky smooth footage. But what would this look like if he was just trying to hand hold it? As you can see, this doesn't look very professional at all. So in today's lesson, we're going to talk about everything we use to stabilize our footage.
Filming high quality content today does not require expensive or heavy gear anymore. You literally can use a DSLR, we're shooting on mirrorless cameras, and in many cases, I'm actually pulling out my cell phone to shoot footage.
We started with the very first DSLR that could ever shoot video. That was the Nikon D90. Back then, things were much more complicated. Getting audio into the camera was absolutely impossible back then, and then syncing audio in Premiere afterwards was an absolute nightmare. I'm happy to tell you that things are so much easier now. Today, we're shooting all of our video with DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, and we have the audio going directly into the camera. We can edit the footage extremely quickly in Adobe Premiere and export a finished product in just a few minutes. Now it's time to talk about lighting. And you can go crazy with lighting. You can spend almost any amount of money on lighting, but luckily you don't have to. This little guy takes 6 AA batteries. It's incredibly bright, and I love it because it fits in my backpack and it fits in my pocket. Now, we created this tutorial with still photographers in mind. We assume that you guys already know how to work your camera and that you know how to get a correct exposure and know how to work with composition and things like that. But I'm sure you still have a few other questions. You might not know how to deal with audio.
What frame rate should you be shooting at?
You may not have ever dealt with constant lights before.
You may not know how to make your camera movements look natural.
You may not know how to edit video footage. And so our goal for this tutorial was to answer all of those questions. So we can pan and tilt with a standard tripod head manually, but wouldn't it be nice if we could shift from right to left? That's where sliders come in, and you're watching me right now on an electronic slider that's doing everything for us. Now let's say that you're not a professional photographer and you don't know where to begin to get into video. We want this tutorial to work for you as well. And so we do cover many of those basic fundamentals as well. We talk about white balance and getting the correct exposure, how to nail focus, and then the different stabilizers that we use to get that professional looking footage. Another tool that some specialized video cameras have is focus peaking. As you can see right now, there are red lines around me, and this is showing us the areas of focus in the scene.
People are constantly asking us, what tripod do you use? Or how do you shoot slow motion? Or what is your favorite gimbal to use? Not only do we answer all of these questions in this tutorial, but we show you how we like to use all of these pieces of gear.
All right, guys, today we're gonna be talking about slow motion. We are here at a cable park where wakeboarders are jumping behind us. As you can see, I might be a little wet already because I've been sprayed a few times. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be shooting a lot of handheld footage at different frame rates and then slowing it down to get really nice looking slow motion.
In this tutorial, we also show you several different ways to make time lapses, which is kind of the best of both worlds. You get to take incredible still shots and then combine them in a timeline to produce a moving photograph. Another problem that you'll experience when shooting time lapses with still photographs is that in many cases, the final product is going to have a lot of flickering. And this can be caused for a lot of different reasons, but one of the more common ways that this flicker is introduced into your time lapses is actually from your camera's inability to stop down to the same aperture consistently, photo after photo.
Now, the hardest part from switching from still photography over to video is editing. But I've got to tell you, editing video is much simpler than you probably think. Now, you may have noticed that just a few months ago, we released a tutorial on Fstoppers called Intro to Adobe Premiere. And in that tutorial, I teach you guys how to edit footage using the software Adobe Premiere. I'm excited to say that if you buy this tutorial on Intro to Videography, it includes that entire tutorial on Intro to Premiere. As you can see right here, we've got some tools that we can click on, and 99% of the time, I am only using two tools. The tool we're on right now, which is the selection tool, and the razor tool. One of the most common questions that we regularly get, and something that we still struggle with to this day, is how do you get clean audio in different situations? This is something that you're never 100% going to master, but we've learned a lot throughout the years, and we've been shooting footage around the world in some of the most harsh conditions, and we've had to figure out ways to battle wind, rain, snow, and in this tutorial, we wanted to talk about all of the tips and tricks we've learned about getting clean audio in any situation.
So how do you solve this problem? Well, basically what you want to do is you want to set the preamp on your camera really low, set the input level really low, and then use the preamps in your microphones to get the cleanest amplification off of your microphone first and then input it into the camera. If you have your microphone set too low and then you try to bump it up with your camera, you're going to get the effect that I just showed you where you get that hum, you get that hiss.
Now, we cover a lot in this tutorial, but we actually wanted to put it into practice. So for the last lesson in this tutorial, we go out and actually shoot a real commercial for a real client, and you guys get to see what it's like when Patrick and I show up on set for the first time and we work through the entire process. In this lesson, you're going to see how we mic our subject, how we shoot the interview, how we light the scene, all of the B-roll that we shoot, and then Patrick and I are separately going to edit two different versions of the same job, and then we're going to sit down and talk about each one of our edits. I think this final lesson does a great job of putting everything that we've learned into practice. So you're probably wondering why I'm dancing back and forth here. I'm trying to get some motion here. I'm shooting at 120 frames a second right now, so we're gonna slow this down a lot. And so all of these movements from side to side will look nice and smooth, and all I'm looking for is like 1 second of good footage.
The thing I probably like most about shooting video is that I do not have to give up still photography. In fact, I can use one camera and do both stills and video in one single setting and actually make more money doing it.
I think so many still photographers are simply afraid of the unknown. You spent so much time learning how to do one specific thing, and the idea of starting completely over and trying to learn a completely new craft is scary to a lot of people. But the industry is changing fast, and most of the big name photographers that you've heard of, they shoot video, and if they don't personally shoot video, they are directing videos. And every single one of the photographers that we've worked with to create Fstoppers tutorials, they also create videos. But I'm here to tell you that if you already know how to take a picture, flipping your camera into video mode and taking a video clip is really one of the easiest things you could possibly do.
I think this video tutorial has been the #1 thing people have asked us to produce, and I'm so excited to finally knock this out and share everything that we've learned over the last 8 years with you so that you can start taking video as well.
If you're already a still photographer and you've been thinking about getting into video, you have no more excuses. This is the video for you.